12 brand new images just beamed in from the future. Get your first look at the cadets, campus and clues to what Starfleet Academy has in store. Let's dive into the details. Well, hey everyone, I'm Nick and welcome back to Sci-Finatics. Well, today we're looking at some new promo photos for Starfleet Academy. We're one day away from San Diego Comic-Con, which obviously we're going to get some big announcements, new trailers for Starfleet Academy, some more stuff for Strange New Worlds, no doubt. So it's going to be exciting to talk about that stuff tomorrow. But today we're going to have a look at these new promo photos for Starfleet Academy. We finally get to see some of the sets, some of the characters, some of the makeup, some of the costumes for this new Star Trek show. And it's looking pretty cool. So let's get right into taking a look at those new photos for the show. Let's check them out. Here is our first look at the campus on Starfleet Academy. Obviously we've got Admiral Vance there at the lectern on the right, and another gentleman that he's talking to on the left lectern there, but it doesn't look like he's necessarily part of Starfleet going by his costume there. If we look at the screens in the background, we can see that on the screens it says Welcome Betazoid Delegation. So obviously these guys on the left of frame, I'm guessing Betazoids, and perhaps they're rejoining the Federation, because obviously there's a lot of worlds that split from the Federation during the burn. Maybe the Betazoid delegation are coming here to I don't know, rejoin the Federation or something to that effect. We also see the Starfleet Academy logo on the center of the floor here as well, which looks cool. And the Starfleet Delta is cut out at the bottom of each lectern here. We see a bunch of cadets in the background. I like the fact that the cadets have got the grey uniforms. I think that sets them apart from the regular Starfleet officers. I think, you know, there always needed to be a little bit of a difference in the cadets' uniforms versus the actual serving officers' uniforms. So I like the fact that they've kept the division colorings and everything on them. But we've got the grey appearance, which is consistent with some of the previous incarnations of Star Trek where we've seen cadets wearing grey in the past. Definitely also seems like they're leaning into the cherry blossoms as a main feature on campus at Starfleet Academy. There's a lot of shots in these promotional photos that show cherry blossoms are very prominent on campus, so a bit of a Japanese aesthetic there. Here's a shot of Paul Giamatti, our first look at this new villain character he's playing on Starfleet Academy. Obviously an alien character here, going by his ears and also the lines and so forth around his eyes and brow and forehead and so forth. Some news sites have speculated it could be a Klingon hybrid or half Klingon, half another alien character, but the Klingon features are pretty subtle, if not non-existent. But I think the makeup looks cool. I think we can see enough of Paul Giamatti's face for it to be him, but obviously being alien at the same time. I like all the ornate metal jewellery and so forth he's got on, with the things on his fingers and the rings and the ornate nature of his costume there with the black leather as well. That looks pretty cool. I think he's going to play a memorable Star Trek villain. He's going to be up there amongst some of the potential best Star Trek villains because he's such a great actor. And I think sometimes the success of a good Star Trek show obviously is how good the villain is. So I think he's going to be a good one. Here's Holly Hunter in the captain's chair, no doubt on the bridge of the training starship, I guess that you'd call it. I know there's going to be a starship they use to go out and take the students on like field trips and so forth, with her in command. The aesthetic in some of the sets for this show look more like they belong on Strange New Worlds. I think they're definitely leaning into that 1960s aesthetic that Strange New Worlds has gone with. I got no problem with the production design for the show. It just to me, if you just immediately flash this image up on screen without seeing what show it was from, I would probably assume it was Strange New Worlds. It definitely feels like it's more along those design lines. We see a crewman in the background here, looking very relaxed, I must say. I think he needs to be reprimanded. He's looking a bit too chill and relaxed and sitting on the console or something there in the background of the ship. I think he needs to pep up a bit and do his job. But I think Holly Hunter's looking good here in the captain's chair. Here is our first shot of Robert Picardo as the Holo Doctor from Voyager. Looks great in the new medical uniform here. Interestingly, we can't see his mobile emitter on his sleeve, so maybe they've incorporated his mobile emitter into his Tricom badge that he wears on his uniform. Again, set in the background with some flowers and everything. You know, looks cool, but yeah, again, every image I'm seeing of the set definitely looks in the ballpark of, you know, just I suppose things like the port galley in Strange New Worlds, that design aesthetic. Here's a shot of Jet Reno looking her usual dry self. This is obviously a classroom environment, I'm guessing, where she obviously lectures in engineering at Starfleet Academy there. We've got a whole bunch of computer screens with different planetary bodies and information and so forth on the background where they'll be displaying notes and so forth for the students. I think this is a pretty cool looking classroom. I like the design style for this. Definitely feels like that 1960s, early 1970s design aesthetic. I'm not sure I like these new comm badges with the rank and so forth on them and so forth. They're quite small. Seeing the Starfleet Delta is quite small on them, and obviously you've got the rank and so forth coming off the bottom of that. Here's a shot of another professor or lecturer or teacher or whatever at Starfleet Academy, and she's a Jem'Hadar. I think this is cool. That's an interesting dynamic, having a Jem'Hadar lecturer. Maybe she's lecturing in security operations and so forth. So maybe it's combat training or self-defense training or something to that effect. I think having a Jem'Hadar and a female Jem'Hadar at that is a very interesting prospect. Very interesting to see this character. Well, I don't think we saw any female Jem'Hadar in DS9, so that's cool. In this photo we get to see, looks like the mess hall, I suppose, at Starfleet Academy. We've got a bunch of students sitting there with laptops open and drinks on the table and in uniform and so forth. And we've got one cadet here standing on a chair doing a bit of a speech to the crowd. He looks very passionate, whatever he's talking about there on his proverbial soapbox. Here's a shot of Sandro Rostar and Zoe Steiner standing on a balcony here at Starfleet Academy, and we've got like an honour board in the background of this shot with these guys, where we see past members of Starfleet that's honouring them. We've got a whole bunch of very memorable names here in the background. Let's just quickly go through some of these people on the honour board here. Lieutenant Commander Connor Rosser from the TNG episode Suddenly Human, Captain Will Decker from Star Trek The Motion Picture, and Captain John Harriman from Star Trek Generations, Captain Carol Freeman from Lower Decks, and Captain Cristobal Rios from Star Trek Picard, Commander Hugh Culber, Captain Terrell, Jadzia Dax, Peter Preston and Balana Torres, Captain Sonia Gomez and Ambassador Garrick, Commander Beckett Mariner, and Commander Joseph Mbenga. It appears that Zoe Steiner is wearing a very similar uniform to that gentleman who was talking to Admiral Vance at the lectern in the previous photo, which showed welcoming the Betazoid delegation. So, based on the fact that she's wearing a similar uniform to him, would seem to imply that Zoe Steiner is playing a Betazoid character. Here's a photo now of Carice Brooks, George Hawkins, and one other cadet who I can't quite recognise. Here we get to see a bit more clearly some of the cadets' uniforms, which I think look good. They've got the, obviously, division striping and so forth on the front of them. They've got a big Starfleet Delta down the side, which looks cool. But yeah, I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of the Starfleet insignia and the Delta on their chest there. Obviously having a meal there in the mess hall area of the Academy. And again, we see the cherry blossoms in the background there, which obviously are a pretty big feature on campus from the looks of it. Here we get another one of our cadets. This, I think, is Karim Diane, who clearly is playing a Klingon Starfleet cadet. So he looks cool as a Klingon. Here's a shot of Bella Shepherd. Obviously she's wearing a red command style uniform, holding a pad there, and she's clearly playing an alien of some kind as well. There's a few interesting alien designs in the show that aren't necessarily typical Star Trek aliens we've seen before, so this will be interesting to see what species she's part of. Here's a shot of Tatiana Maslany, obviously who played She-Hulk in the Marvel series. She's not in any Starfleet gear and she's with a small child in a mountainous area. Looks what almost could be even like a prison cell or something, but it has a window. Looks like she's maybe held prisoner or held captive by somebody here in this space. So yeah, that could be interesting to see how that fits into the plot. No doubt at Comic-Con we'll be getting a teaser trailer perhaps for this show, amongst other promotional material for, I'm guessing, not only Starfleet Academy, but also maybe the second half of Season 3 of Strange New Worlds. And maybe even a look ahead to Season 4 perhaps even. I'll be back tomorrow with David. We're going to be discussing all of the stuff that's dropping as part of Comic-Con in San Diego. All the Star Trek stuff, breaking that down, having a look at it all and giving our thoughts on all the new content coming for Star Trek. So be sure to tune in tomorrow for that. Guys, if you haven't subscribed to Sci-Finatics yet, be sure to do so. Click on that big subscribe button to stay current and up to date with all the latest Star Trek news on YouTube. And be sure to check out my merch store where you can pick up really cool t-shirts, much like this one, where you can get hoodies and mugs and caps and tons of stuff there. Always reasonable prices, and it helps support the channel as well. I'll be back tomorrow with my breakdown and wrap up of everything Star Trek that's come out from San Diego Comic-Con, and I'll see you guys then.